Tonight, tragedy unfolds at a place of worship.
It's just the most devastating, horrific, mind-blowing thing to know that that's my family, that this has happened to.
A man walks into a church and starts shooting.
Multiple rounds were fired inside the church.
One person is dead, 7 others injured, including the gunman.
The gunman himself has already been released from the hospital, and he will be booked this evening with murder and several other very serious crimes. It's been an unbelievable afternoon here. Well, it looks as if the family members are finally being led to their loved ones who are going to be released after 6+ hours in the church ante-building here, a side building. So we'll be back with some of these reunions. They're happening right now.
From the pastor of this church to a single mother of 2 children, there are families either anxiously awaiting news on status updates for health, or they're beginning to mourn. And unfortunately, a family friend has confirmed that Melanie Smith Crow, a single mother of a 12-year-old and 19-year-old, was shot and killed. Her friends are already beginning to mourn her on her Facebook page.
It's just the most devastating, horrific, mind-blowing thing.
We got a possible 6 victims. The suspect is down, suffering with a gunshot wound.
I was like, I don't even know if my family's alive anymore. So I was just started busting out, crying.
As soon as we heard that he was okay, we just started crying even more.
The man suspected in a church shooting in Antioch, charged now with murder. Emmanuel Sampson is in jail tonight.
He was just shooting.
Minerva Rosa was in the sanctuary as services were about to wrap up. They had been studying Luke chapter 8 about miracles and the healing of a bleeding woman. With blood stains on her blue dress, she tried to explain what happened. Were people running, or were they just crouching on the ground?
That's the thing. Our church, mostly senior people, they was running in when he came and started shooting from behind. Yeah.
Did you hear it first or see it first?
I hear him first. It was, so fast. He don't talk. He just keep holding the hand like they're going like this and, like moving like this.
Sarah Griggs's daughters were in the church. They called her panicked but all right, saying Pastor Joey Spann, though he would end up shot, had the instinct to warn the others.
Joey waved his hand when he realized what was going to happen and said run. People were just running and hiding and trying to get away.
The gunman was wounded by a self-inflicted shot.
Police now know that shooter, Emmanuel Sampson, had 2 guns. He tried to hide his face with a neoprene ski mask, and he had a getaway plan, or so it seemed.
His vehicle was parked beside the church, and when the police department arrived, it was still running.
Once police learned his identity and shared it with the survivors, there was shock.
They did not know who it was until they heard the name, and some of them gasped when they heard the name and said that he used to go here, and they said a year or 2 ago.
There was a lot of weight and worry in the hot sun today, and wondering what this world has come to.
I grew up and this was like a gravel road. And so when you've got all the people, crime, I don't know what the shooters' motives were. I have no idea.
People can't go in a church and worship in peace, and that people are so full of hate that they will shoot other people. I don't understand that.
I just live right here, so those people mean a lot to me and my family. So they were there during the loss of my husband. Yeah, love them all. It's a very sad day for everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
An intense manhunt for a suspected killer comes to an end just an hour ago in West Nashville. Channel 4 had the only cameras there rolling the moment that suspect was captured. Daniel Clark is accused of shooting and killing at gas station Kirk in cold blood. This was during an overnight robbery with a missing endangered 15-year-old girl by his side. Both of them now being called suspects. You can see them taking down the suspect. Again, this is 28-year-old Daniel Clark, said to be a friend of the girl, 15-year-old Trinity Quinn. We actually ran an interview this morning with Trinity's mother, who was saying that they had known this man. She actually had called him Uncle Dan, this 15-year-old, and she was reported missing on Monday. They actually reported her missing on Tuesday, last seen on Monday at an elementary school in Ray County. Right now, for folks who are looking at the bottom of your screen, this does appear to be the 15-year-old Trinity Quinn right there. She's wearing a sweatshirt hoodie right there, but you can see she is waiting to be actually put into that vehicle. And yes, that's what we're being told. It is confirmed that that is the 15-year-old Trinity Quinn that was part of this Amber Alert this morning.
We know she had a crush on him, but we just thought it was like one of those teenager crushes, nothing serious. We love you. We miss you, your brother misses you, and your sisters. Please come home.
More witnesses are coming forward describing what they saw and heard Sunday night in Las Vegas when that concert turned into a killing field.
Tonight, a Nashville couple staying in that same hotel as the sniper is speaking to News 4. Their story is unique. In fact, the room they were staying in at Mandalay Bay offered nearly the same vantage point as the shooter, just 11 floors below. Our chief investigative reporter Jeremy Finley made his way into the hotel and has the exclusive details and video for us.
Tom, I want to show you again a live look of Mandalay Bay and specifically the 32nd floor where that window has been shattered by 64-year-old Stephen Paddock. He used a hammer, police say, shattered that window in order to fire on the crowds below. Now, if you look down 11 floors, that is where I was able to enter today to tell the stories of two Nashvillians who were trapped inside.
And I crawled right where this spot right here.
Eric Cole got on his hands and knees when he first heard this outside his hotel room Sunday night.
Get down, get down, get down.
As he crawled to the window, he saw the Mandalay Bay's famous gold-tinted glass fall in chunks outside.
So as I'm laying here, right, peeking out the bottom, and I'm watching what's happening at the concert, glass shards started falling. And
11 floors above Cole and his wife Anna was 64-year-old Stephen Paddock. Investigators say he used a hammer to smash the glass in order to fire on the crowd below.
We were almost directly underneath.
With his wife Anna rushing to deadbolt the door, Cole watched in disbelief the horror unfold outside.
Then all of a sudden you'd see people get up and rapidly trying to escape the scene, and that's when it really settled in for me what it was that was happening. It was just awful. I saw people falling.
From the Cole's hotel room, you can see down on the concert that is now a crime scene. The debris from the crowds, their chairs, it's all still there, carefully being examined by investigators. The hallways of Mandalay Bay are practically empty. Guards stand watch outside the elevators leading up to the 32nd floor where Paddock fired his weapons. The view for the Cole's hotel room, not one they ever wanted.
It basically looks like the concert just ended over there. It's a really macabre scene, honestly. It's very sad.
Tornado sirens sounding throughout the mid-state this morning as storms roll through our area, along with this possible tornado touchdown in Cool Springs. Hail, heavy rain, and straight-line winds, leaving behind a trail of damage in its path.
And in fact, now a tornado warning has just been issued. This is for that thunderstorm that we were just zeroed in on. So we are going to stay in wall-to-wall weather coverage as this is moving through.
About 45 or so minutes ago, Paul, we heard the tornado sirens going off in this area, and I can't even describe to you how strong the wind was. It was an absolute downpour. It was really hard to stand up at that point. Our umbrella was flipping up. That is when the Office of Emergency Management, where we are right now, brought us inside just to be safe.
You can tell it came right through here. You can see those trees are knocked down, and then it came here, and check this out. It hit these cars, knocked these tree down. And I have here with me Val Taylor. You know, it looks like your house at least dodged a bullet.
I think we're very lucky. The tree just seems to have fallen and hit the cars, and as you can see, it's just propped up against the house.
A sad situation here for boat owners here at Four Corners Marina. And I want you to take a look behind me here. This is part of the dock that was blown over this morning, and it was full of boats. And I'm joined now with one of the boat owners here, Robert Chavez. Robert, tell us a little bit about your boat and where it is and what we're looking at.
Well, if you look straight on the gate you see going on to the actual marina boat dock, the first boat on the right that has a roof over it is my boat. We haven't assessed the complete damage, but obviously the dock itself and the roof, you know, you can see that has been damaged totally.
I wouldn't say as bad as the 2010 floods, but it's getting up there.
Water rescues underway in Sumner County with people trapped in their homes, on their roofs, cars floating off the road and into creeks, and children rescued off of school buses this morning.
Take a look. This is even a more flooded portion of this road here, a longer area now that is impassable. Although just a couple of minutes ago, I watched as a truck, and I'm going to show you that right over here. Follow me. This truck actually just went through it, and I am not by any means recommending that anyone try to pass over this because you really never know how deep it's going to be, how fast that water is moving. But do you see this right here? This gives you some idea of how deep this water is going up this truck here. I'd say it went probably up to the top of its tires here.
As we're watching really 3 water rescue events take place here from Air 4.
They were also mentioning Cummins Lane and Upper Station Camp. So that's another scenario where people are apparently on top of their trailer. But as you can see, look how massive as far as this water coming up and just flooding, and how quickly it can trap you in whatever scenario you are, whether that's in your home, whether that's in a vehicle. These people obviously needing help.
When we were here a few hours ago, this area looked as if it were a pond. Again, that bus got stuck right here with some 17 children on board. The bus driver tried to cross this road around 7 o'clock this morning when that road was flooded with several inches of water after the Caney Fork Creek overflowed out of its banks. Emergency management sent people out on rafts to rescue those children, and thankfully everyone got out okay. One firefighter said that water came up to the seats on that bus, just like that picture we showed you, and he tells me he really just does not understand why anyone would have even tried to drive through that much standing water. I talked with one woman whose son normally rides that exact bus. Instead, she decided to keep him home today because of all the rain. She says children were having to jump out of the back window of that bus to those rafts.
Yes, and now it's even scarier to find out that it was my kid's bus. I'm shocked, you know. I hate it for all those kids. It's sad to know what they're going through and how scared they were. I mean, that's just crazy.
What's the exact location of your emergency?
She said, I feel nasty about what I've done.
And I was quiet for almost a year.
Comes back to Natalie Amos, D. David, revoked.
That is repulsive.
This looks like a firing squad.
It's an investigation that began after police closed the book on a suicide here at the Sweet. Amos is allowed to drive away on a revoked license. She doesn't get a citation for it, just the ticket for no seatbelt and expired tags. So what kind of business did Amos have with Moreland at his office the day she was stopped by the motorcycle officer? Amos showed us texts she said were between her and Moreland. The texts back and forth show they didn't have a meeting planned, no official business. In fact, when she was stopped, Amos was on her way to meet the judge at a bar called the Batter's Box. After they met for drinks, Amos said they did go back to the courthouse to have sex in Moreland's office. Moreland texts her at 6:30 that night, "Damn, you're hot." The next afternoon, Amos texts that she's super grateful for his help. The judge texts, "Just used my superpowers." And then, "My desk still has butt marks on it." Our I-Team investigation also found Moreland sending texts while he was on the bench, once mentioning he was listening to information about a wiretap during a cocaine case, another time sending a picture of the defendants before him. And sometimes he referred to the defendants in his sex trafficking and drug court as hoes and junkies. We shared those texts with law professor Charlie Jay. He's a Carnegie Fellow who's testified before the U.S. Senate as an expert on judicial ethics.
If what is reported here is true, this may not be a judge who is well suited to the bench.
Our Channel 4 I-Team broke story after story on Moreland. 2 months into our rolling investigation, federal marshals showed up at the judge's door. They took him away in handcuffs. Moreland charged with attempting to bribe a witness and set her up on phony drug charges. Now the witness was Natalie Amos, the woman who had been the judge's lover, the woman who told her story only to Channel 4. And the U.S. Attorney's Office, they had the money shot.
That is a photo of the money that was offered to person one in this particular case to sign this affidavit.
$5,000 money Judge Casey Moreland allegedly offered to get Natalie Amos to recant the story she told Channel 4. In our exclusive interview, Amos told how Moreland helped get her out of legal trouble. She said they had sex in his office. Judge Moreland appeared in court today the way he normally sees the defendants before him, shackled hand and foot. The U.S. Attorney's Office announced they took him into custody because they feared he was jeopardizing their investigation. The criminal complaint also says Moreland tried to get a police officer to set up Amos on phony drug charges.
Finally, the complaint further alleges that Moreland engaged in conversations and planning to have drugs planted on person one and orchestrate a subsequent traffic stop during which the drugs would be discovered and person one would be arrested and her credibility destroyed.
At a hearing in federal court a few days later, we see the undercover video that forms the backbone of the U.S. Attorney's charges against Moreland. An informant, Wired, records key evidence against the judge.
We're here for the detention hearing and the probable cause hearing.
Judge Casey Moreland, in a baggy green jail jumpsuit, sat and listened as federal prosecutors laid out the case against him Friday.
Who does he work for?
He does something for DEA and...
In court, Moreland watched himself on hidden camera, having conversations with an informant wired by the FBI in March. Moreland talked to the informant about finding an officer to plant drugs on his former lover, Natalie Amos, to discredit her.
Is he going to be the one to pull her over? He'll be the one to pull her over. But he's just said, his main thing was like, as long as it don't come back to me.
In the recordings, Moreland also arranges for the man to offer a bribe to Amos, some $6,000, to say she made it all up, that they'd never had sex in his office, and that their explicit text messages were all spoofed.
What you're about to hear is what some in Cannon County believe is more than just dirty politics.
It involves threatening letters and audio recordings that were never supposed to be made public. That is, until our chief investigative reporter Jeremy Finley got a hold of it.
A former county commissioner says what you're about to see is proof that the Cannon County executive is using strong-arm politics. The letters we've obtained were clearly designed to be anonymous threats to those who clashed with the county government. That is, until the county executive himself was caught discussing them. And now the TBI is investigating. Are you critical of the county?
I surely am.
Jan Powell knew her frequent criticisms of Cannon County government on Facebook would make her some enemies.
I'm a taxpayer and I'm going to say what I want to.
But she never anticipated retaliation that would arrive in the mail. Did you feel threatened by this letter?
Absolutely did.
and be heard in recorded audio of the highest elected official in the county.
That son of a bitch is going to live up.
How do you explain what's on this audio?
I can't comment on it.
Audio obtained by the News 4i team of the county executive discussing an anonymous threatening letter, almost verbatim, during a private meeting. Here's the letter on the left. Listen to Gannon's own words on the right.
And if you think they won't find out, I'm warning you. You shut up or I'm putting that little bitch on Facebook. And then it says at the bottom, and if that don't work, I know some other stuff I'll put on Facebook.
He should not be representing our county.
It all started when Cannon County Deputy Clerk Tina George walked past Gannon's office and could hear him and Commissioner Adam Melton from the hallway outside. Fearing they were violating the Open Meeting Act, which forbids deliberation of county business in secret, she sat down and started recording. You thought this is a meeting that shouldn't be happening.
Exactly.
And you needed to get proof of this. And that's when George heard about a letter threatening a taxpayer not to say anything else on Facebook. We won't get into specifics, but the letter threatens to expose an alleged sex act performed by the taxpayer that the letter claimed happened in a horse trailer. Again, what the threatening letter read on the left and what Mike Gannon said in that meeting.
And then it said, if you're not, I remember when you were on a horse ride a few years ago in the back of a horse trailer giving 3 minutes. How would your church folks feel about you then? Something like that. I can't remember exact words. If I were you, I would stay off. I'm telling you, if I were you, I would leave quiet on Facebook. She should have gotten it today. It was made with respect. That's what I heard.
I couldn't believe that they would, he would do such a thing or someone would be capable of doing such a thing.
And when that meeting ended, George was waiting outside.
Hi, Mike.
What are you doing?
What do you mean, what am I doing?
What are you doing?
I have heard everything you have said.
You probably have.
A few days later, Jan Powell went to her mailbox and found a letter from an anonymous sender containing the insulting sex claim she says never happened.
I was pretty scared because I didn't know who it was and I didn't know what they was going to do. And I immediately started looking over my shoulder, and I still look over my shoulder.
Powell went from scared to angry when George and her former county commissioner husband shared with her what was said in the recorded audio.
Strong-arm politics is all it is.
It appears that the county mayor had knowledge that this letter was going to be sent to you. What do you think about that?
I think he's a scumbag.
Did you have knowledge that these threatening letters were being sent to your critics?
I just can't answer that.
Yes, I was looking for Mike Gannon. When Gannon didn't respond to our repeated phone calls requesting an interview, the News 4i team tracked him down. This is the audio. This is the recording of you having conversations knowing about a threatening letter to one of your constituents. You want to hear it?
No.
And our investigation found Powell isn't the only woman in Cannon County who's received an anonymous threatening letter after clashing with Cannon County's executive.
I got a letter, a threatening letter.
Dottie Duggan is a councilwoman in Woodbury. When you look at the handwriting, how similar is it to the letter you received?
It's the exact same handwriting.
Now listen to what was said in that meeting between Gannon and Commissioner Adam Melton.
Boy, it sure shut down. It sure shut down. It sure did. You know who never that. Hell, don't want that.
I was mortified, ashamed.
This critic of Cannon County government is still so frightened after receiving an anonymous threatening letter, she asked us to hide her identity. Look at how the G's and Y's are written on her letter and the others. The handwriting is strikingly similar. After she received it, the threat worked. She stopped posting about Cannon County government.
It's just to shut you up. And it did a really good job.
It shut you up.
It did.
You are the county executive.
I am.
You are elected to this position.
I am.
There are women in this county who have all received the same kind of threatening letter that have all been critical of you. Do you know that these letters are being sent to these women?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
If he had no idea what I was talking about, let's quickly revisit what he said in that meeting about the letter to Jan Powell.
She should have acted for that. It was made this, but it's what I heard.
You're welcome to call my attorney. I have no comment. Thank you.
And with that, Mike Gannon wasn't taking any more questions.
The Middle Tennessee Juvenile Detention Center holds teens who have been accused of delinquent offenses, everything from theft to rape. But the people you're about to hear from say a child should never be denied medical attention.
There's no greater blessing than having you for my mother.
Carissa Taylor spent the past Mother's Day without her 17-year-old son. For years, the teen has spent time at various juvenile detention centers, and Taylor says she'll never forget what happened at this center in Columbia.
It was very scary. Not knowing what he was thinking, what he may be doing, if I'd ever see him again, or anything of that nature.
Taylor says she received a call from State Crisis Services informing her that her son had tried to kill himself at the Middle Tennessee Juvenile Detention Center. But Taylor says she found herself, not the center, calling 911.
He had tried to commit suicide. He cut himself and everything, and they won't transport him. Can the ambulance come get him and transport him?
The mother says for whatever reason, the facility would not transport her son.
Did they not send him to the hospital? No, ma'am.
And a Channel 4 I-Team investigation found a former nurse and former employee share concerns about how these teens get medical attention.
They need to be held accountable to make sure these kids are getting the proper treatment.
And when we went to get answers, the director of this private facility, Tom Irwin, refused to talk to us. Are these kids getting the medical attention that they need in the time that's appropriate? Chandler Anderson owns the Right Care Clinic in Columbia, which until last year provided on-site medical services to the detention center. Anderson provided the IT with more than 60 medical records he believes raise red flags. In some cases, he claims the center even flouted their medical advice.
We absolutely have failed these children.
Check out this medical record where a staffer notes that a patient with scabies had not received antifungal cream due to cost. And look at this. Right Care had to make multiple requests that teens receive a psychiatric or mental evaluation. The ex-employee says sometimes a patient needed to go to a specialist or the hospital. She claims the center's director, Tom Irwin, often resisted transporting those teens.
We don't take kids out unless it's an absolute life or death.
According to this medical record, a nurse had recommended that the center take a teen to the ER after having a seizure. Instead of doing that, the nurse notes the center just called the clinic 3 times. And when a teen reported a knot in his nipple, a nurse wrote, "This is imperative this be evaluated in conjunction with a mammogram at a certified breast center." Anderson says his clinic never received confirmation that ever happened. The child's mother, who asked to stay anonymous, says she also doesn't know if her son saw a specialist.
Proper medical care is a basic human right.
But the director, Tom Irwin, had little to say about any of the allegations. Is it all made up? Are these accusations unfounded? We are trying to get your side of the story here.
I have no comment.
Nashville will forever be Smashville. An historic run launched Preds Mania. Tens of thousands of fans partied in the streets. Dozens of catfish slid on the ice. And the world watched as Music City's team made it to the Stanley Cup final.
Thanks for joining us for a Channel 4 special, How Smashville Made History. Sit back and relax. For the next hour, we will relive the journey from bottom seed in the NHL playoffs to the final 2 battling for the Stanley Cup. The Predators barely made it into the 2017 playoffs. Their first opponent, the #1 seed and heavily favored Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah, they'll have to be on top of their game, and so here we go. Preds fans, you know the drill. Buckle in and sit back and expect an all-out battle as the Predators take on Chicago Blackhawks.
But it wasn't the Preds fans who needed to buckle up for the ride. Channel 4's Chris Harris explains how the Nashville Predators began to shock the hockey world.
The Nashville Predators squeaked into the playoffs. In fact, they had the fewest points of any team to make this postseason. That meant they'd have to face the top seed in the West, the Chicago Blackhawks, who the Preds had never beaten in the postseason. But our guys set the tone for the series right from the word go. That tone setter was number 35, Pecorine. First 2 games on the road, Pecs pitches 2 shutouts. That brought the series back to Nashville, where the legend of Bridgestone Arena began to grow, as did the stardom of young forward Kevin Fiala.
Neal cuts to the middle, off to Fiala.
His overtime goal in Game 3 lifted the Preds to a win and got the talk of a sweep going.
And with that win, contagious Preds fever became an all-out epidemic. People were literally dancing in the streets, and Nashville united in a way we've never seen before.
I want to show you what's happening from a bird's eye view. We're on top of Tootsie's. Look at this crowd. It is truly incredible. A historic night in Nashville, now playing out on Broadway.
People are fired up. I mean, you see what's happening here? We may have, like, conception going on. Do you remember when? I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This is how it is in Smashville, baby. This is how it is in Smashville. Let's send it back to you before we get in trouble.
Oh, my gosh.
There's a place in War Trace where the faces of outlaw gangs and wrestlers hang on jailhouse walls. A place of a harsh justice. But a ghost town, this is not.
I can't stand card cheats.
They're called the War Trace Regulators. They built this place for their cowboy action shooting competitions, dressed like a motley frontier group from a John Ford Western. And all eyes are on this quick draw.
Go get him, Dix.
That's Kathy Burris, known around here as Dodge City Dixie.
I have a competitive nature. I just kind of go whole hog.
She's a retired executive assistant, a grandmother, an embroidery enthusiast, a gunslinger.
I think they said I missed one, but I'm not too sure I believe them.
Dixie says her inspirations are everywhere out here.
Now, Papa Dave, he's my hero.
She's talking about David Bruschke, still playing Cowboys at 82.
I never grew up, though. I'm not competing against the young guys, even though I could. And believe me, it's a lot better than shooting paper.